we thought the story had lapsed. We thought that the story about the Hixson Utility District had just gone away, that the pressure against that water seller, a quasi-governmental entity, had disappeared and was not going to come back, and that we just had to wait for something to happen for the public clamor against that body's use of an industrial waste product would be a story that would not be finished. Well, this is David Tulis, and we are covering again the efforts by one man to convince the Hixson Utility District to end the use of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Now, that is commonly called fluoride, which is an industrial waste product that is put into the water in an old policy, an old legacy policy that began around the country just after World War II, pushed by industrial interests to make use of a waste product from military uses, and also from the industrial agricultural sector in the way of what is it now? Of supplements to the earth to help crops grow, and that is where hydrofluorosilicic acid comes from. And Hixson Utility District has many thousands of customers. We are here at Nooga Radio, one of them. And when we get water from the tap in our little sink here, we have to drink this material, which has many negative effects. Now, the man that got things rolling last year in November is named Heath Marter. He is 29 years old. He is a musician and the father of two young boys. And the story broke when he had a noisy confrontation with the board of HUD here in Hixson, just down the street on Hixson Pike, and had effectively demanded, in a rather brusque manner, demanded an end to the use of fluoride. So Heath Marter, you were on the scene for 2 or 3 months at the time last year, and then you got distracted and other things were happening in your life, but now you're back. Well, tell my listener, first of all, what your main objection is to fluoride in the water supply, Heath Marter, in Hixson. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is exactly what you said. It's a chemical waste. It's the discharge from the phosphate and aluminum industries, which it is labeled that on our 2016 water quality report. What got me sparked back into action was when I actually pulled up that 2016 report, and the warning label states, before you drink, cook, bathe with our water, or touch infants or animals after exposure to it, you should consult your doctor first. So that really concerned me, considering my 2 sons are bathing and soaking this in and having to drink it. So I started doing some more research, and it turns out the EPA is our best source for fluoride, and their stance on it is they are anti-fluoride due to the fact that it causes cancer. In addition to that, they estimate that it costs Americans up to $6 billion per year in medical expenses. So that's one thing. And then the more you start reading the EPA files, you can actually read right on the file where it says the hydrofluorosilicic acid that we use is actually 30 parts per million arsenic.
So arsenic is the thing that you're highlighting in your objection. Is that right, Heath Marter?
Yes, sir. Yes. I mean, they're literally adding arsenic to the water supply.
Well, let's just clarify that arsenic is it a problem? I mean, maybe that's a silly question, but I'm the slow man in Chattanooga. I asked the dumb question: is arsenic in the water a real problem? Why is it? What's wrong with arsenic?
I don't know anybody that you could ask, or anybody that I've ever asked, if they wanted arsenic in their water, and they said yes. And I don't think there's any question whatsoever that arsenic is definitely a health concern and definitely causes disease and cancer in the body.
Now, this week you had a kind of a one-man protest. It was Wednesday. Heath Marter, you had I think Liz Morris. Was that your girlfriend, Liz, behind the camera?
She was taking the video.
Okay, she was making a video, a rather wobbly presentation at that. Watching you go into the toward the payment window inside the Hixson Utility District building, just across the street from Abba's House Church. And that was Wednesday, and you made a presentation, and you said you asked a question of the lady behind the glass, as if it were a bank with a lot of cash on reserve behind the window, and you demanded of the woman behind the glass, what do you tell people when they call asking whether you have arsenic in the water? And it was very kind of a confrontational question. What happened in that encounter, Heath Marter?
Oh, well, the first thing she answered was she would say no. And then I just, asked her, I said, obviously, well, you weren't aware of it. And then I presented the information that I just shared with you, and basically asked them, not to lie people when they call, because it's very well documented. It is a fact that we add arsenic to the water. So that's what, when people call, they've been lying to them about that if they have been asking that in the past. So,
have people been asking that question?
The water was safe to drink. And also the manager lady there could not give me a clear answer about that either.
All right. So, and you're making much of the fact that the lady behind the subordinate to Greg Butler, who's the general manager, this subordinate would not say the water is safe to drink. You take that as significant somehow. Is that right, Heath?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. The first time I asked her, she stumbled around the question. Then finally she said, yes, it was safe. When I asked her definition of safe, whether it meant it will cause diarrhea today or will cause cancer, she would not give me the definition of her term safe, which is a common misplay of words.
All right. Well, maybe I think the listener should be cautious here. The suggestion that the refusal of a person behind a window to answer questions for the record on media probably should not be taken as legally significant and maybe not even scientifically significant. But Heath, you're saying that you are alleging that hydrofluorosilicic acid, being an industrial waste product, does contain toxic elements such as arsenic, and since HUD refuses to remove it from the water supply serving thousands and thousands of customers in northern Chattanooga, it is in a way endangering lives. Is that what your suggestion is, that there's a danger to the public?
Absolutely. According to the EPA report that's shared, there's a link at the bottom of the post on Save Chattanooga's Facebook page you can look at, or type in EPA hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's very well documented that there's arsenic in the water, and there's just miles of evidence showing how it's harmful to humans, and it does cause disease and cancer.
Well, the listener may remember now that the fluoride story broke first in Saudi Daisy, and the board of the Northwest Utility District last year in July voted courageously to take out fluoride from the water. I think the vote was 7, maybe 6-1 or 7-1. Bill McGriff, among other board members in the Saudi Daisy headquarters of that district, voted it out. And this was at the behest of David Tulis, the manager, whose rationale primarily was that this acid damages the equipment. It is a capital expense, and it's also voluntary. It is something that here in Hixson, the board does not have to have in the water, right? It is a purely voluntary
Correct.
act.
It's not mandated by the state. So approximately only about 60% of the cities in Tennessee fluoridate now. And the other 40% are highly against it for reasons such as the one that I'm stating now.
And I think most recently, Heath Marter, Jonesboro, Tennessee, the board voted it out in the past 2 or 3 months. We've reported that. Jonesboro,
Rogersville, Tennessee, the list goes on. If you start looking nationally, it's been reversed, or should I say fluoridation is being ended one city after another nationwide. And currently in Europe today, 98% of their countries do not fluoridate either.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Heath Marter, who is the father of two, a musician who is a customer of Hixson Utility District. He's 29 years old, and on Wednesday carried a sign complaining about fluoridation in Hixson of the Hixson Utility District, which has 3 board members. We have met some of them at Nooganomics.com. The website, by the way, Nooganomics.com is the website that has, it is the multimedia platform run by me, David Tulis, your host here on the David Tulis Show at Nooga Radio. I am the as Dave Crockett says, the blogger with the biggest pen. And we have given extensive coverage, to the Saudi Daisy dismissal of hydrofluorosilicic acid, and now to the petition by Heath Marter, who really, you kind of made, I think you scared members of the board when you broke this story late last year. Heath, I think they found you kind of rude and offensive. And I'm wondering about what the best way is to convince these members, the 3 board members of HUD, how to convince them to remove it, rather than you have a kind of a blustery, a blustery manner, Heath Marter. How does that work?
Mad about it. Yes, I am. But there is a better way, I'm sure.
Well, I remember
maybe not.
Huh? Well, at the hearing, there were 2 hearings. The first one was we covered that extensively at Nooganomics when we got everybody's comments in, right? The people who spoke for fluoride, we quoted them extensively, and you as well. But I think they were a little intimidated. And at one point, Greg Butler, the general manager, said, "Sir, if you don't calm down, we're gonna have the officer carry you out." I think he said.
That is correct. There was no officers in the room, though.
No, there weren't. But
he said he was going to have somebody carry me out and escort me out of there, though.
Right. Okay, so you're someone who you're rather kind of maybe a bit of a tough character, Heath Marter, perhaps.
Yes. So my suggestion is the best solution to have him removed is one. Right now, the board members really, and Greg Butler and everybody at Hixson Utility does have an easy road out right now, because they were not aware before, supposedly or publicly, that there was arsenic in the hydrofluorosilicic acid. But now they are aware of it. If they did go ahead and make a move, that would be in the best interest of the public, and would basically take all liability off of them at this point.
So what you're suggesting, Heath Marter, is that there is a legal liability for Rebecca Hunter, who is, by the way, she is the appointee of Governor Bill Haslam for his employment division, the largest employer in Tennessee as state government, and Mrs. Hunter, who lives in Saudi Daisy, is the head of that giant agency that oversees the employment of state employees. She is on this board in a very, you might say, a very kind of petty and small assignment. She dignifies the board with her presence, and then there are 2 other members. One is Jeff Davis, who's an attorney for another government worker, an attorney for the Department of Children's Services. And then there's one more member, an older man, who they all agree that fluoride is good. And so you're saying that they have a legal liability to keep it. Keeping it raises their legal risk, you're saying?
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know that, but I know at the last board meeting that we did not present this information when they made their last decision. So, assuming that they, now that they had the information, they made a move, that would definitely, in my opinion, I personally, or I don't think anybody else would go after them legally, if now that they know the truth, that they would go ahead and end fluoridation now.
Well,
and if not, I could see how somebody could be held legally responsible for adding arsenic to the water of 80,000 or so, roughly people.
Well, that's right. So what you're saying is, it sounds like what you're saying is that if they act in good faith, they should act upon the new knowledge that they have. But Heath, I've not seen what you've submitted to the board. But in the earlier uproar in November of last year, much was said, and I think much was submitted in the way of scientific warning.
Stuff was submitted in that last board meeting, but we did not present any medical evidence of the fluoride being poison. So, we did present the fact that it was an industrial waste product, which should speak for itself. But now that they know that there's literally 30 parts per million of arsenic, I think that changes things.
And they have been notified.
Well, yeah, I went in the water company and notified them, everybody that works there. And I guess the next step would be to email. I have emailed this information to our council members for Chattanooga. And I think the next step would be to somehow legally notify HUD of this information and present it to them at the next water council meeting as well.
Well, that would be, I've written about this topic before, and that would be done by a legal process called administrative notice. And that would be what administrative notice does is it denies the good faith defense. And good faith defense is used by police officers. It's used by officials who say, well, I didn't know. I abused my authority because I didn't know that it was abusive. But if you give administrative notice, you deny that defense. And then what happens then if they are denied the good faith defense, then what those prosecuting an accusation against the HUD would say, well, you're acting in bad faith because you did know, you were notified properly administratively, and keeping this industrial waste product in the Hixson water supply is done in bad faith. And so bad faith is just poison to any defense. If someone can show bad faith, you're just ruined. If you're a public actor, a state official, bad faith is just your absolute ruin. And you set up the bad faith claim by administrative notice. So, just sending a letter may not be enough. I think the form, Heath Marter, the form might need to be in that way, administrative notice. And
I would appreciate any help with that I could get. That administrative notice could come from any citizen to them. Right. Am I right?
Right. It could be anybody could give that notice. It just has to be structured citing the limitations of the good faith defense. I mean, the good faith defense is obviated, is destroyed if there is proper notice. It's a matter of proper legal notice, and that's more than just sending a phone call, making a phone call, or sending a letter, or making a statement on the HUD website.
Piece of paperwork.
I'm sorry.
That's a legally binding piece of paperwork.
Well, yes, because it's submitted by it's submitted with in a special mailing or hand delivered before witness. That way it makes it irrefutable that there's been proper notice. And so I think there's something there. I think what you're trying to do is to warn the board against future legal hazard against the district by saying, look, I'm notifying you now that you better take steps to get this material that you, Heath Marter, says has arsenic. Can get this out of the water now? It's voluntarily being done. You're under no obligation to do it. You're not required to do it. It's expensive. It costs your utility a lot of money in repair, damage to pipes and fittings and the like.
And the fluoride itself is $22,000 a year that we add. You can imagine them dumping this in there in big barrels.
Well, it's done by drip, Heath. It's very small amounts every hour. It's just a few drops.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that, but you can imagine there's a massive tub of it for it to be $22,000 worth of industrial waste.
Well, that's right. We had when we covered this story, Heath Marter with Nooganomics and Nooga Radio back last year in Saudi Daisy. We had access to the water plant, and the water plant workers all hate this stuff. And David Tulis, the general manager, was absolutely behind the board and encouraged the board to remove its use. And we had photographs of damage to that fluoride room in Saudi Daisy. They're remarkable photographs.
Wow. And the public should see those. And I really admire David Tulis for taking that big step that once he's seen a problem, they took action immediately. There was no hesitation. There was no waiting. If there's another reason that we're adding the hydrofluorosilicic acid that we're unaware of, we also would like the board members to let us know if it is necessary and why that would be as well.
Well, listen, Heath Marter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, David.
Thank you. This is David Tulis, and we've been chatting with Heath Marter, who is an activist who caused an explosion, as it were, late last year in November in the Hixson Utility District, demanding an end to the fluoridation process. The board stood its ground, was impervious to claims about it being unhealthful, being a neurological toxin, dangerous to children. Now, this is David Tulis, and my position is that it's really less in the science of fluoridation, whether it really helps tooth enamel among 4 and 5-year-olds. That's kind of beside the point. The main point is that Hixson Utility District does you the favor of making a medical decision for you, for the ostensible benefit of a tiny category of customers, and that would be very small children. And so whether you're 90 years old or 80 years old or 70 years old or 60 years old or 50 years old or 40 years old or 30 years old or 20 years old or 10 years old, Hixson Utility District will make a medical decision for you and put this fluoride in your water for the benefit of the 5-year-old. Okay, so there's a mass medication program in effect right now in Hixson here in Chattanooga, and you're being fluoridated by Hixson Utility District. And the board, well, I think the board needs to get some notice. It needs to be notified that there is a danger to this program. It's a voluntary program, and I suggest that it's creating a legal hazard downstream for this district. Someone's going to smarten up, and someone's going to sue for a neurologically damaged child or a teenager, and they're going to try to point to HUD and demand $5 million in compensation. That's a risk that this board should not be taking. This is David Tulis, Nooga Radio, sponsored by Nooganomics.com.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.